Don't fuck up. Don't fuck yourself. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rude Cooking School podcast. I'm your host, John Hauser III, and I'm here to read you, to tell you, to invite you into my living room. Sit by the fire, why don't you? And we'll sit around and tell tales of food weirdness from the past. This is one of the episodes where I'm going to tell you about a unusual story or two, in the case today, about just some wild shit that I've been reading lately, and I want to pass it along to you. This goes along in our episodes about floods of beer that killed people, or beer that people were drinking and it killed them. This one has nothing to do with beer. And no one dies in it, believe it or not. I don't think. No. There's just these are just stories that I find that are really interesting that I can't really do much with. And it's not really fun to kind of read to a person, like a partner. So it'd just be me and you, dear listener, today. We are going to get into it in a bit. I hope you're doing well. Sit down, sit back, relax. If you need to go smoke a bowl, eat a couple of things, get some chips, you pause it right here. It's fine. I'm not going to start reading until about now. Okay, so the stories that we're going to get into, the first one is going to be about the time the Nazis tried to kill Winston Churchill. And what they tried to kill him with was fucking bananas. Well, actually, it wasn't bananas. It was chocolate. Because apparently that was kind of an easy thing to do for that guy. So, little background. This is kind of, I don't know if this is where death by chocolate came from. It should be. I'm titling this episode Death by Chocolate and I guess Skully Silver Spoons. But yeah. So while Nazi Germany rained conventional bombs upon Great Britain in World War II, Adolf Hitler's forces were also busy at work devising fiendishly clever booby traps to strike the enemy on its own soil. As the war progressed, British intelligence agency MI5 learned of a secret Nazi sabotage campaign to hide explosives in everyday items, such as cans of plums, those things that everybody has around now these days, canisters of motor oil, shaving brushes, and lumps of coal. By the way, for those who don't know, shaving brushes were literally like beaver hair brushes, or made of some sort of coarse hair that they would put these little bars of soap at the bottom of these metal cups. You put a little water in there, and then you put the brush in there, and you kind of swirl it around real fast, and it would develop a lather. Then you put the brush on your face, and that's how you got shaving cream on your face. And lumps of coal is a pretty wild thing. Like, I guess that's, you throw the lump of coal in your oven, or your the thing that's heating the room, and then that explodes. I'm not assuming it's like, let's kill the children who are bad in England. The spy agency even discovered Nazi plans to develop bangers and mash that truly delivered a bang. And in the spring of 1943, MI5 operative Victor Rothschild learned of an even more ingenious bomb being conjured up by the Nazis. An exploding chocolate bar. Dan, dan, dan. The killer candy was cloaked in a black foil wrapper with gold lettering bearing the name Peter's Chocolate. It was a brand. That was supposed to be the brand. Underneath the real chocolate exterior was steel and canvas. And when a piece of chocolate at the end of the bar was broken off and the canvas pulled, it activated a bomb that would explode after a 7-second delay. That's actually pretty fucking ingenious. MI5 believed Nazi secret agents were plotting to smuggle the explosive chocolate into the war cabinet and into the hands of Prime Minister Winston Churchill who is known to have had a sweet tooth. Rothschild, a trained biologist and member of a prominent banking family, had been recruited to lead MI5's three-person explosive and counter-sabotage unit. However, he was not an artist and needed sketches of the Nazi devices that could be used by intelligence officers to defuse the bombs. Luckily, Donald Fish, one of Rothschild's two colleagues, knew just the right person for the job: his son. Lawrence Fish, a self-taught young artist, was employed by MI5 to produce detailed, freehand drawings of the menagerie of booby trap bombs. When Rothschild learned of the stealthy candy bomb, he again turned to Fish. Quote, "I wonder if you could do me a drawing for me of an explosive slab of chocolate." End quote. Rothschild wrote to Fish on May 4th, 1943. From a secret bunker deep under the streets of London, the MI5 counter-sabotage agent included a rough sketch of the bomb, which he wanted Fish to improve upon. Quote, "Would it be possible for you to do a drawing of this? One possibly with the paper half taken off, revealing one end, and another with a piece broken away showing the canvas." End quote. The letters stamped secret had been found by Fish's widow, Jean Bray, as she combed through her husband's possession following his 2009 death at the age of 89. Good job, dude. The artist's original drawings, though, had been missing for decades and presumed lost with dozens of others. The BBC reports, however, that a sheaf of more than 24 of Fish's drawings were rediscovered in 2015 by Rothschild's family as they cleaned out a chest of drawers in the family's house in Suffolk, England, a quarter century after the intelligence officer's death. Quote, "I didn't know the drawings existed," end quote, said Fish's widow, according to an article in the Gloucestershire Echo. Quote, "He always helped keep letters, but nobody knew what had happened to the drawings. We presumed that they had been destroyed or lost," end quote. Some of the explosive devices depicted in Fish's newly rediscovered drawings appear to have been ripped from the pages of one of Ian Fleming's James Bond novels. They were bombs concealed inside matchboxes, pocket watches, and even thermos flasks. One sketch shows the Nazis had developed plans for a simple culinary timing mechanism in which dried peas in a test tube would expand as they absorbed water, forcing a cork to rise until two brass screws touch to complete a circuit. Good grief. Made in an era before computer-aided design, the finely drawn sketches were not only utilitarian in assisting MI5 personnel to locate and defuse booby trap devices, but artistic as well. Rothschild even mounted some of the drawings on the walls of his study. Quote, "Nowadays people would say these drawings are nothing, and you could do that with a computer in a second," end quote, Bray said. But, quote, "There's no machinery or anything like that at the time. They were all hand drawn," end quote. And that's really fucking weird. Like, okay. One, I mean, it was known that, there was like all this spy versus spy shit going on where counterintelligence and intelligence are trying to get to each other. And there were Nazis inside Germany, inside the, agencies, inside the government, close to people. They were blackmailing people to, put devices in places to kill prominent people. The fact that they were like, all right, we need intelligence on Winston Churchill. What does he like? What does he not like? Oh, he likes chocolate. I mean, and that, you got to think of it like, even back then, a bar of chocolate is pretty thin. It's not like here's a big, because I don't know if you're familiar with like a bar of baking chocolate. Like that's what I imagine. So a bar of baking chocolate's like 2.5 to 3 inches thick and maybe 2 feet long by 1.5 feet wide. They're really big bars of chocolate. They're amazing. But back then you wouldn't think that they'd have the capacity to bring a bomb down so thin to put it in a, like, what, even today we would think of as a bar of chocolate, which is pretty small. So these fucking bastards just putting things, you couldn't trust anything. Christ's sake, got to, flasks and matchboxes and pocket watches, and that's where, they mentioned Ian Fleming and James Bond. That's why in the 60s, all that James Bond shit was so popular. It's like, fucking, watches that shot darts, or, Maxwell Smart later, the shoe phone and, stuff like that, because Ian Fleming worked for MI5. He was a spy, and, he was like a boring guy, but he wasn't James Bond. So he wrote all the shit that he kind of saw or heard and put them all into the James Bond novels, which don't read those. They're super crazy and super homophobic and super sexist. I mean, James Bond is sexist, but they're kind of fun to watch for just being goofy. But yeah, the books are trash. But yeah, that's a fucking crazy story. And I love it because I can't imagine just being like, been a long day, time for a bar of chocolate. It's just bananas. Now they would, I don't know, poison everything, or, there's always talk of like, they got this like sound wave ray that fucks people's heads up, or, it's all different. Now it would be like they would make a program that would make a computer blow up. I don't know. So next story next. Now, okay. The next story is a pretty weird story, just of like people thinking things are one thing and not. I just find it amazing. I'm obsessed with spoons lately, and I've been reading a lot about different kinds of spoons. I've started a bad habit of collecting old spoons. Like when I'm at a flea market and someone's selling old cutlery, and I just find a really cool old, clearly old spoon, I've got to have it. And I'm not talking about like just some shit spoon. It's got to be, a good size, a good heft. It's got to have an appealing line and curvature to it. It's like a whole thing in my head. I've talked before, we've gotten some of these cool like tomato spoons that have really ornate holes in them, so you can, take the slices out of the, I guess at the time they would slice them, salt them, and then just let them sit for a bit. And then, the tomatoes weep. So you don't want to mess your plate up with disgusting tomato juice, which is the best part. But they had these holes, and they're really intricate. They look like lace almost, but they're made out of silver. And they're beautiful. And I have all these really nice tasting spoons now, and serving spoon. Well, not even serving spoons. I just use them for cooking and tasting, and, putting sauces on plates, because sometimes my actual like cooking spoons are like industrial aluminum or, steel stamped, culinary kitchen spoons. But these are nice and gentle, and they weigh nice. They weigh good. They feel good in your hand. It's an obsession. But I came across this story about these British spoons that were they're silver, and they were topped with these engravings of skulls, and people didn't know what they were for a while, and then they did. So let's find out about it. In 1904, a collector named J.T. Micklethwaite, there's a fucking name, brought a rare death's head spoon to a meeting of the Society of Antiquaries of London, declaring it, quote, too grim to be put to ordinary use, end quote. Trust me, I'm not going to do an English accent. I'm not going to do it. He pointed to the engraved skull at the top of the stem, complemented by the message, quote, live to die, end quote, on one side, and, quote, die to live, end quote, on the other side. Micklethwaite theorized that the 17th century spoon must have been a funerary gift, while such mementos, including funeral rings and funeral biscuits, we'll get there one day, were not uncommon at the time. Funeral biscuits are fucking weird, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. Micklethwaite was looking at the wrong end of life. The macabre piece of silver was likely a gift for a baby. Just as there are just a handful of original death's head spoons in museums and in private collections today. Designed between the 1660s and late 1670s, they all bear the skull, a morbid motto, and the coat of arms of the Stricklands of Boynton Hall, a wealthy Yorkshire clan. The family's prosperity can be traced back to William Strickland, a navigator who accompanied Sebastian Cabot to the Americas and claimed to have introduced the turkey to England in the mid-1500s. To catch a glimpse of this legacy, visitors can stop by the family's memorial chapel, where Bibles rest atop turkey-shaped lecterns. With the earnings from his voyages, William purchased several estates, including Boynton. Some Strickland descendants parlayed their prestige into parliamentary positions. Others used the family funds to buy skull-topped spoons. But who commissioned the silverware, and more importantly, why? Quote, "It was purely because of the skull that people thought it was a funeral spoon," end quote, says David Constable, who investigates the province of death's head spoons in his book, Silver Spoons of Britain from 1200 to 1710. It's a very specific timeline. To debunk the funeral theory, Constable points to each spoon, the year each spoon was designed. Historic British silver includes helpful hallmarks noting its creation, year, and region. Constable, who owns a death's head spoon from the early 1660s, compared the year of each spoon's creation with Strickland's birth records and realized that the dates lined up closely with the birth of Strickland's children. The years of Strickland children. He concluded that the silver artifacts were originally christening gifts commissioned by Lady Frances Strickland, the children's grandmother. That's a pretty wild-ass gift. Quote, "You've heard the saying, born with a silver spoon in your mouth," end quote. Constable says, quote, "I think she was trying to give that memento of the silver spoon and to really personalize it," end quote. The spoons are really, really cool. We'll get into it. The family silverware even inspired riffs on the original Strickland skull spoon style. The Merchant Adventures Hall, a museum in York, has an original Strickland death head and another family version in its collection, along with bearing the arms of the Cromptons of Drillfield. The other spoon diverges from the original death's head style in several ways. While the Strickland spoons feature stems that end in a disc shape and block lettering that spells out "live to die" on the front, the Crompton stem ends in a three-pronged design and features "die to live" in cursive on the front, but it's DYE to live, not DIE like the Stricklands. Quote, "I think what happened is people saw the Strickland family spoons and thought, that sounds rather good. Let's give it as a christening present to our daughter or son," Constable says, end quote. While it might seem a little odd to remind newborns of their mortality, it wasn't unusual for 17th century families to commemorate happy milestones such as christenings or weddings with death-focused arts. Skulls were a part of the memento mori motif, which reminded viewers to contemplate their inevitable end. In the 1560 marriage portrait, the Jude Memorial, newlyweds sternly posed beside a skull with a corpse in the foreground. Lest anyone miss the point, a romantic inscription on the frame adds, "When we are dead, and in our graves," R is spelled OWR, "and all our bones are rotten, by this we shall be remembered when we should be forgotten." All this shit is spelled really fucking crazy. Dead is DEAD. R, like I said, is OWR. Rotten is RUTTUN. Remembered is fucking super weird. And should is SHULD. And forgotten has a Y in it. But yeah. When we are dead and in our own graves, and all our bones are just rotten, by this shall we be remembered, and we should be forgotten. So, yeah, cool. And just like a skull-topped christening gift, 17th century Vanitas paintings underscored the cycle of life by connecting birth and death with scenes of babies sleeping atop skulls. By the way, the painting of the people that are married, it's pretty bleak. Like there's literally just like a dead body in front of them laying down. You know, it says at the underneath the body of the guy is live to die and die to live eternally. And, you know, die is spelled with a Y, and it's pretty weird. The word of God hath knit twain, and death shall divide again. Yeah, pretty crazy. Both their hands are on a skull. There's flowers. It's pretty fucking brutal picture. They don't look happy, by the way. They're just kind of staring off into the middle distant, not each other. It's a great painting. Quote, back then, mortality was more of an ever-present thing because you didn't live as long, end quote, says Lauren Marshall, the museum director at the Merchant Adventurers Hall. Quote, and then you had a God-fearing society where everyone went to church, and there was this idea of living a good, pious life. When you die, you'll be judged. The skull being ever-present showed that death was always around the corner. So best to just be good now, end quote. At the Merchant Adventurers Hall, the skull-top spoons continue to compel visitors of all ages to contemplate their mortality. Quote, no matter how old you are or how young you are, they're fascinating, end quote, Marshall says. Quote, there are some of my favorite items in the collection because they elicit such strong responses from visitors. A lot of what we talk about can be quite dry, but this is interesting to everybody, end quote. And, like, you know, the pictures, the Strickland ones are actually, let me see. Yeah, so on the I have two pictures here. I got a picture of two spoons, should I say. The Strickland ones are very, very when you get like, let me describe this to you. When you get like soup at a fancy place, or if you get French onion soup and it's very, the spoon is very rounded, it's very bowl-like, you know, like just a round spoon. And it looks very hand fashioned. Like it doesn't look like it was cast. It looks like it was probably made and then shaped. It's very uneven. The carving in it is very, very elementary of the skull. Like it's a very small little skull in a circle at the top. There's like some ornamental lines and, you know, dots that were definitely banged into it with like a piece of metal to just ornament it. And then live to die is written on the, you know, part where you actually hold the spoon. And that's actually really nicely engraved. But then the Crompton spoon, which is the one that I would have gotten, die to live is expertly fucking carved into this thing in sort of like a really, it's not cursive, but it's a really nice font. It looks awesome. It's closer to the top. The skull is cooler. It's a little bit bigger. It's not as simple. And like we said, there's like a little 3-pronged thing at the top. It looks really nice. But other than that, it's a very simple spoon, and the bowl of the spoon is more oval, like, you know, like an egg shape, like fatter at the top that goes down and tapers into you know, like the front part that you put in your mouth in the beginning. It looks like an upside down egg. Fat part at the top, thin part at the bottom. Not as circular as the other spoon. The other spoon has an engraving in the bowl, which is, I'm sure, you know, whoever made the silver spoon has their own stamp. The Strickland spoon is more elaborate, but I like the Crompton spoon better. And I will post the picture of this on the Facebook and on our Blue Sky account, because it's pretty fucking cool. And that's the end of the episode. I thank you so much for listening to the Rude Cooking School podcast. Check us out on Blue Sky. Check us out on Facebook. We're at both places. Facebook is the place to go to party and hang out with all the other Rudies who listen to the podcast and post their silly fucking goofy memes and ask questions or show what they're eating or what they ate or where they ate it at, or recommend like stories like this place opened, did you check it out, or this is a trend, or, you know, really goofy shit. It's a lot of fun. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with my Blue Sky account right now. I'm just, you know, I post the stuff that I eat personally. Just kind of reshare other people's stuff that I really like, or other podcasts that I like. Just because, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats for me. So I don't mind promoting other podcasts. And yeah, so come and check it out either place. Tell your friends and family about us. We don't pay money to, get our names out there. So, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your neighbor, tell your male person. We're all in it together. I hope you guys are doing well. I will talk to you next week. Peace. Oh, I'm John Adams III. Don't yuck my yum. Peace. Was that piece good for you? Was that okay? Was that a good piece? Did I do peace too much? Peace. Yeah. See you guys.